shrink, crinkle, and your blood thickens, and your heart has to work harder to push the blood through your veins. Thus, your blood pressure rises. Next, they give you a pill to lower your cholesterol. Instead of telling you to cut out the animal fats and drink more water, just take this pill that will destroy your liver and kidneys, and you can keep eating the animal fats. Then they give you a blood thinner medication, instead of telling you just to drink more water and cut out the sodas and caffeine. Now, what sounds right to you? Cut out the animal fats and trans fats, drink more water, eat more fiber, and exercise, or take the medications that destroy your organs and potentially cause more serious health conditions, and keep eating and drinking the same thing and not exercising. Now, what sounds right to you? But if you take off the blinders and get a glimpse of the big picture, common sense can prevail. Acid reflux is relatively a new disease. They used to call it heartburn, but as soon as the medication was invented for heartburn, it got a new name. When you feel pain, your body is trying to tell you something. Maybe it's trying to tell you what you're doing or eating is the problem. All the sugar, the fast foods, junk foods, preservatives, additives, and toxins. Maybe your body is telling you that you're dehydrated, that it wants water, not sugar and artificial flavors, but water. Most people assume that drinking plenty of fluids like sodas is good enough. Not true. The human body needs water, pure, clear, unadulterated water. Water is processed in our bodies differently than any other fluid or liquid on Earth. When we give our bodies water, our stomachs can sense it. In fact, water leaves the stomach within 45 seconds and begins a path that takes it directly to the brain, the central nervous system, and finally the blood. Stagnant water breeds pollution and bacteria. Flowing water is always fresh and clean. Not drinking 8 glasses of water a day, it's like not taking a shower for a month at a time. We wouldn't dream of treating the outside of our bodies like this. Isn't the inside more important? When we consume any liquid other than water, the body draws water from the bloodstream to aid with digestion, making the blood thicker, increasing the blood pressure, and making the heart work harder. A recent study at Loma Linda University concluded that people who drink at least 5 glasses of water a day cut their risk of heart attack in half. When we drink water, the water is absorbed into the bloodstream, making the blood thinner, lowering blood pressure, and taking the strain off the heart. And what's in your stomach to aid with digestion? Acid and water. If you take away the water, what's left? Acid. Could that be what your body's trying to tell you? You won't hear this from the healthcare industry, but what you will hear about is this little purple pill called Nexium. There are possible side effects and warnings that go with it, but we're told that that's normal. Now, does this sound normal to you? Possible side effects include headache, constipation, cough, or diarrhea. If they continue or are bothersome, check with your doctor. Contact your doctor immediately if you experience throat pain, chest pain, severe stomach pain, or coffee ground vomit. An allergic reaction to this drug is unlikely, but seek immediate medical attention if it occurs. Symptoms of an allergic reaction include rash, itching, swelling, dizziness, and trouble breathing. If you notice other side effects not listed above, contact your doctor, nurse, or pharmacist right away. Now, does this make sense to you? Could this be your body's way of trying to tell you something that the pharmaceutical industry doesn't really want you to know? Should the side effects of medication be worse or even more dangerous than the symptom itself? Many of us have heard the term partially hydrogenated, but do you really know what that means? Partial hydrogenation is the process for making plastic. To make plastic, they infuse hydrogen into petroleum oil, and the amount of hydrogen that is added will determine the hardness or softness of the plastic. When they make partially hydrogenated food products, they use the same process, but they use highly saturated animal fat, vegetable oils like lard or palm kernel oil. So we end up eating a form of vegetable plastic, which is loaded with calories. Partially hydrogenated oils are in so many foods we consume every day, from candy to chips, cheese dips, almost all snack foods, cheese puffs, morning cereals, cheese products, cookies, ice cream, the list goes on and on. Plus, they all been proven to cause cancer. Where's the warning? We're surrounded with breakfast cereals made of candy, sugar, sugar, and more sugar. How about the cereal bar with the milk inside, processed sugar? Pop-Tarts, toasted strudel with real fruit filling, processed sugar. Even drinks that are supposed to be healthy like fruit drinks contain no fruit or juice. There are mostly artificial flavors, preservatives, and sugar or chemical sweeteners like aspartame. And the so-called real juice is cooked to 400 degrees Fahrenheit or pasteurized and then loaded with additives and preservatives so it can sit on the store shelves for months on end. Throughout history, societies have moved in unhealthy directions, only to discover the error in their ways many years later. Products like cigarettes, asbestos, and lead-based paints are only a few of the many examples that have caused immeasurable pain and suffering. We were all conditioned to believe that these products were good. Everybody jumped on board, people started to get sick, but big money turned our attention away. In the end, no one saw it coming until it was too late. And even after the dangers are exposed, it still takes societies decades to right the wrongs. The drug and chemical lobbies, like the cigarette lobbies, have very deep pockets, and very deep pockets, unfortunately, can hide the dangers until it's too late. Even once the dangers become known, their deep pockets allow them to add little warning labels and continue to sell the dangerous products until the losses from lawsuits cause them to start losing money. And in the meantime, we the people, along with our children, pay the price.
I think Americans need to recognize that every time they put a pill in their mouth, especially a new pill that they've never taken before, it's an experiment.
Dr. Raymond Woosley runs a national center to study the side effects of drugs at the University of Arizona College of Medicine.
Morning.
He worries that most people don't understand how much about new drugs is unknown.
When a drug goes on the market, only about 3,000 patients have ever been given that drug. We will never know all the toxicity that can occur, especially the 1 in 10,000 or the 1 in 20,000 that could be seriously harmed. Our detection of that will only happen after the drug is on the market and exposed to huge numbers of patients.
The cholesterol-lowering drug Baycol is being pulled off the market.
It's been linked to 31 deaths in the U.S. from muscle destruction.
Under pressure from the FDA, Bayer voluntarily took Baycol off the market in August 2001, 2 years after first getting reports there might be problems with the drug. David Archer was one of many patients put on the new Baycol 0.8 dosage. He also was switched over from Lipitor, and his wife Lucy remembers that her husband was in excellent health until he began taking Baycol.
David was always very active. He would chop trees, he would do a lot of things. But then as he was taking the Baycol, I noticed as we walked especially, he would complain about his toes, then he would complain about the calf, his legs, and then his muscles and the back. Finally, it got so that he just couldn't seem to bend over to put his socks on and shoes. And no way had I ever thought that this Baycol was doing this. He took it October, November, and December, he was gone. He should have never died.
Lucy Archer's husband died more than 5 months after Bayer had strong indications their drug might be less safe than Lipitor. Although the company hasn't acknowledged any wrongdoing, Bayer paid an undisclosed amount to settle a lawsuit brought by the widow of David Archer. Although Bayer has won a few jury trials in cases where it was unclear that Baycol caused the damage, the company has settled more than 1,200 lawsuits and paid over $430 million to victims. Beyond the harm done to individuals, though, the Baycol story reveals how dependent the FDA is on information supplied by drug companies.
The FDA is wholly dependent on trust, on trusting that the company is providing all the truth all the time, that the company is not hiding information, that the company is not covering up information, the company is not changing information.
Dr. Leo Lutwak, a retired FDA drug reviewer, says reliance on companies was central to the biggest disaster in the agency's history, the Fen-Phen tragedy, in which 2 FDA-approved weight loss drugs injured tens of thousands of Americans. Lutwak struggled within the agency to keep those drugs out of consumers' hands.
I felt it was an open-shut case. This was a dangerous group of drugs with very little, if any, benefit, and that they should be immediately removed from the market, removed from use, discontinued, disappear. Well, that didn't happen. I became disturbed. I became concerned about the system, I became concerned about the drug company's role in this, and I was particularly concerned with the potential effect on the thousands of millions of people who would be using the drug.
What was particularly shocking to me was that on the heels of reporting that this drug caused a fatal, incurable disease in Europe, that the company was planning to put it on the American marketplace. When I had heard this, I said, well, you can try. It's never going to get in this country. The FDA would never permit a drug that had little benefit, terrible risk on the American marketplace. The FDA is your watchdog that looks out for your safety.
FDA reviewer Lutwak also believed the agency would not approve the drug.
According to what I'd read and the way I interpreted the Food and Drug Administration's role, we're supposed to evaluate drugs for their safety and efficacy.
The drug companies that were seeking to sell Redox also got a turn to speak.
40% of patients.
They presented data showing that some patients lost a lot of weight and argued that for society as a whole, obesity was more harmful than any side effects. Eventually, the 11 committee members had to come up with a recommendation, which the FDA could either accept or ignore. The FDA sided with Wyeth. People at the company were jubilant. Leo Lutwak was devastated.
I thought it was wrong that the company was allowed to have a second chance at the advisory committee. I thought there were wrong decisions made. I expressed that. I started feeling enough heat to make me recognize that my opinions were not only not respected, but they would be disregarded and pushed out of the picture.
The number of people hired at the agency to protect, to analyze data on drug safety is criminal.
Dr. Woosley was a top candidate to head up the FDA last year and believes safety should be a much higher priority at the agency.
The teams that are needed to do drug safety are infinitely more than what they've got right now. We don't have a safety system in this country.
The Congress has repeatedly looked at how it wants to fund the FDA. And so once, twice, and again last year, the Congress decided that the best way to fund the FDA was to look to the pharmaceutical industry to provide a portion of the funds to help support review. That's the decision of the Congress.
Another alarming issue is meat safety. We all trust our lives to the USDA and meat production companies to keep us safe from E. coli and salmonella, deadly bacteria. In the early 1990s, a deadly outbreak of E. coli at Jack in the Box killed a dozen or more people, including several children. This forced the USDA to reevaluate its inspection practices. What was found was that in 1993, the USDA was still using meat inspection procedures which haven't been updated since 1906. This means the meat you were eating was determined safe by using the poke and sniff method. How was this allowed to happen? The beef industry lobby, that's how. Thus, the USDA imposed stricter biological testing regulations. But the beef industry put up a big fight. Just recently, one of the country's largest producers of hamburger, Supreme Beef, was cited for several deadly violations of salmonella contamination. Instead of cleaning up their operation or change their practices, Supreme Beef sued the USDA, trying to say that meat contaminated with salmonella was safe.
3 times, Supreme Beef, a hamburger meat grinding plant in Texas, failed a series of tests for salmonella contamination, once with nearly 50% of its meat contaminated. Instead of complying with the new standards, they sued the USDA.
And this wasn't just any ground beef plant. This was a ground beef plant that was supplying as much as 45% of the meat for the National School Lunch Program. I mean, this meat was going to be sold and served to kids.